Welcome to Crime Chronicles Confidential. This is not just another story. This is a truth so disturbing, so unsettling, that once you hear it, you won't be able to forget it. Tonight, we take you deep into a case that shattered hearts, broke families, and exposed the darkest corners of human nature. A case where innocence was not just stolen, but crushed beneath the weight of cruelty. Every clue doesn't bring answers. It opens new questions. Every step forward takes us deeper into a web of fear, manipulation, and betrayal. This isn't just a murder case. It's a haunting reality. And by the time we reach the end, you may never see trust, love, or safety the same way again. It was an ordinary evening. The kind of night where the world feels still, predictable, safe. The hum of distant traffic, the glow of city lights, and the comfort of routine wrapped everything in a quiet calm. She had finished her shift. Tired maybe, but relieved, just like any other day. She sent a few texts, casual, familiar, told her boyfriend where she was, said she'd be home soon. Nothing out of the ordinary. And then something shifted. One message, then another. Her tone had changed. Subtle at first, then unmistakable. She was nervous, unsettled. "I don't feel safe," she wrote. "Can you come get me?" It wasn't like her to be afraid. Not like this. But before he could leave, before he could even call back, another text came through, a location pin. Then another, then silence. No response, no answer, just stillness. Like a light suddenly switched off. Her phone stopped ringing. Her signal disappeared. In the span of minutes, everything changed. That night, so normal, so unremarkable, turned into the beginning of a nightmare. A moment so small, so quick, yet so final. And no one, not her boyfriend, not her family, not even she, knew that it would be the last time anyone ever heard from her again. Her name was Anastasia Patricia Rubinska, born in 1996 in Poland. She was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. Friends described her as warm, full of laughter, with a heart that believed the world was more kind than cruel. She had big dreams, the kind that made people roll their eyes until they realized how serious she was about them. She wanted to see the world, not just in pictures or postcards, but with her own eyes. She wanted to breathe in new places, meet strangers who become friends, live fully, deeply, and without fear. Modeling was one of her passions. Not for fame, not for attention, but because it made her feel confident, powerful, seen. She enrolled in beauty school, worked hard, took up jobs in luxury hotels, always saving up for her next destination. Traveling was her oxygen. It kept her alive in a way nothing else could. Her family adored her. Her father said she was the kind of daughter who would call just to hear his voice, the kind who hugged a little tighter before saying goodbye. Her brother called her a rebel with a soft heart, a firecracker who didn't let anyone dull her light. And then there was Michael, her boyfriend since teenage years. 13 years of love, ups and downs, plans of future. They dreamed of building a life together, one filled with adventure, joy, and eventually, maybe even marriage. Together, they moved to Greece. It was supposed to be a new beginning, a fresh chapter in their book. She had just started a new job, a new country, a new life. Anastasia wasn't just another name in the news. She was a real person, a young woman with ambition in her eyes and kindness in her heart. She was trusting, open, and believed that people were good, perhaps too much for her own safety. She saw beauty where others saw danger. And in the end, that belief will become the most tragic part of her story. Greece was supposed to be the next big chapter in Anastasia's life. Together with Mile, she left behind the familiar streets of Poland and stepped into the warm, sunlit shores of the Greek island of Kos. It wasn't just a vacation or a quick escape. It was a decision, a leap of faith. They wanted more out of life, a better job, a new beginning, a place to breathe freely, earn well, and start building the future they had talked about for years. Anastasia took a job as a hostess in a 5-star resort in the tourist town of Marmari. The kind of job that sounded glamorous from the outside, serving smiles with cocktails, meeting new people every day, wearing a crisp uniform in a beautiful hotel by the sea. But it was hard work, long hours, demanding guests. Yet she didn't complain. She was used to pushing herself. This, after all, was the path to something better. She and Miho rented a small place. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. They talked about buying a house, maybe getting married there, starting a family even. Everything felt possible. Greece was more than a destination. It was a symbol of hope, but what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that danger had already taken notice. It watched from the shadows. It waited in silence. In a land known for its beauty and charm, something sinister was lurking just out of view. Anastasia believed she had stepped into a dream, but the truth was she had unknowingly stepped into the heart of her worst nightmare. It was June 12th, 2023, the last day anyone would ever see Anastasia alive. She woke up early, like she always did. Her work uniform hung neatly on the chair, the white blouse, black skirt, polished shoes. She was particular about how she looked. She believed presentation mattered, even on the hardest days. That morning, she seemed tired but determined. Mayo remembered that she hadn't eaten much. She brushed it off, said she wasn't hungry. She had a long shift ahead, and maybe the stress was already beginning to weigh on her. She headed to the hotel on time. The day was hot. The Greek sun showed no mercy, and inside the kitchen where she worked, the heat was worse. At some point during her shift, she accidentally burned her hand. It was serious, painful enough to leave her wincing. Her co-workers noticed, but she insisted on finishing her shift. She didn't want to be seen as weak. She just wanted to get through the day. By the evening, she was drained. Her hand throbbed. Her stomach was still empty. Mayo offered to bring her something to eat, but she refused. She wanted to relax, unwind. She said she'd go out for a quick drink instead. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes they went together, sometimes separately. It was never a problem. They trusted each other. Anastasia changed into casual clothes, a summer dress, light and breezy. She grabbed her small purse, slipped her phone inside, and said she'd be back soon. Mayo was still working. They agreed to meet later for a quick date at a local bar. As the sun set, Anastasia walked alone through the streets of Marmari. She made her way to a nearby store, bought a small bottle of wine and some snacks, and sat by a low fence near the shop. Surveillance cameras caught her sitting there, sipping quietly, scrolling through her phone. She looked calm, alone, unaware that eyes were watching her from nearby. Moments later, a group of 5 men appeared in the footage. Locals, or at least they looked like it. Migrant workers. Perhaps. One of them approached her. They began talking. She didn't seem uncomfortable. Witnesses would later say they laughed together, shared drinks. Nothing violent, nothing threatening. But Mayo was uneasy. He was receiving texts from Anastasia, updates about where she was and who she was with. Then, around 10:30 p.m., a message arrived. Her tone had changed. "Can you come get me? I'm not feeling safe." These weren't jokes. These were warning signs. Mayo called her, told her to wait, told her not to leave with anyone. She promised she wouldn't. But then, another message. Someone had offered to give her a ride on a motorbike. A stranger. One of the men. Mayo panicked. He begged her not to go. He told her he was coming. But her replies became scattered. First a location pin. Then another. Then silence. Those last few minutes tell a chilling story. 3 different location messages sent in quick succession. None of them made sense. Then one final message. "Everything's fine." It wasn't. That was the last time Mayo ever heard from her. And while the night seemed ordinary to everyone else, just another summer evening by the beach, for Anastasia, it was a final chapter in a life that had only just begun. The messages started simple, just check-ins. Anastasia telling Mayo where she was, what she was doing. She mentioned she was having a drink, that some guys had joined her. It didn't sound alarming at first, just casual updates. Mayo was still at work. Try not to overthink it. But then the tone changed. "Something doesn't feel right," she texted. Mayo immediately responded, asking what was wrong, where she was. Her reply came quickly. "Can you come get me?" It was short, direct, Not something she would normally say unless she truly felt uneasy. Miles' heart dropped. He asked her to stay where she was, to not talk to anyone, to wait for him. She said she would. But then another message came through. A guy here offered me a ride. Miles' mind raced. Who was he? Why was she even considering that? He called her again, urged her not to go. He told her he was leaving right away, that he'd come to pick her up himself. Her next messages were scattered, unfocused, as if she wasn't thinking clearly. She sent her location once, then again, and then a third time, each placed just minutes apart, none matching the previous. Miles tried calling. No answer. Then finally, one last text. It's okay. Everything's fine. But it didn't sound fine. Not at all. It sounded like someone trying to calm a storm that was already out of control. Like someone forced to write something they didn't believe. To Miles, those words weren't comforting. They were terrifying. Because deep down, he knew Anastasia was in real danger. And those final messages, they weren't just words. They were the beginning of a scream. One the world didn't hear in time. After that last message, everything went silent. No more texts. No more calls. Her phone stopped ringing. Her location stopped updating. Miles kept trying, calling again and again, messaging nonstop. But there was no reply. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The hours dragged on. Panic began to twist in his chest. He left work and went to all the places she might be. The store, the bar, the streets between. Nothing. No one had seen her. No one knew where she went. The night, once ordinary, now felt haunted. Time slowed. Every minute without a word from her felt heavier than the last. By midnight, fear had taken over. Miles called the police, then her family. His voice cracked as he said the words out loud for the first time. I think something's wrong. She's missing. And with that, a new story began. One no one ever wanted to tell. A story filled with dread, confusion, and an ache that refused to leave. The kind of story where every second counts. Where every moment lost could mean never getting her back. And yet, all they had now were questions. Where did she go? Who was she with? Why had she gone silent? And would they ever hear her voice again? The search began before dawn. Miles couldn't sleep. He waited for a miracle, one message, one call, one sign that she was okay. But the silence remained. Cold, crushing. At sunrise, he went to the local police station and filed a report. She was officially declared missing. The authorities didn't waste time. The island was small. If she was somewhere nearby, they had a chance to find her. Officers took statements, reviewed her messages, marked the coordinates of the last location she had sent. But nothing connected. Each location pin pointed in a different direction, like a puzzle with no edges. Flyers were printed. Her photo, smiling, full of life, was taped to lampposts, shop windows, and bus stops. Miles stood in the middle of town, holding one in his hands, asking strangers if they had seen her. Some shook their heads. Others didn't even stop to look. Volunteers came forward, tourists, locals, hotel workers who had seen her just days before. Search parties formed. Groups walked along roads, beaches, and forest edges with flashlights and loud voices, calling her name. Nothing. Drones were launched. Police dogs were brought in. The terrain was checked for clues, abandoned buildings, fields, cliffsides. Officers knocked on doors, stopped vehicles, checked surveillance from stores and traffic cameras. But the island swallowed secrets, and nothing came to the surface. And yet, Miles kept moving. Every hour mattered. Every lost minute felt like a betrayal. He retraced her steps again and again, staring into the empty streets where she might have walked. Try to imagine what she saw, what she felt. The air grew heavier. Fear spread like smoke. The more they searched, the more terrifying the silence became. Because no trace meant one thing. Someone had made sure of it. The breakthrough came from an eye that never sleeps. A small grocery store, just a few blocks from where Anastasia had sent her final messages, had a security camera pointed toward the edge of its property. At first glance, there was nothing unusual. People walking by, cars passing, the soft routine of island life. And then there she was, Anastasia, captured in a single frame, sitting near a low fence by the shop, sipping from a small bottle of wine and eating snacks she had just bought. She looked calm, a little tired, maybe a little distracted, but not scared. Not yet. Investigators slowed down the footage, watching every second with hawk-like focus. They saw her glance at her phone, take a bite of something, lean back against the fence. It was late, but the street still had movement. She wasn't alone in the world. But then they saw something else. A group of men approached her, 5 to be exact. They were talking casually, nothing aggressive. No raised voices, no gestures of threat. One of them sat down beside her. The other stood nearby. They passed the wine around, laughed, shared cigarettes. It looked harmless. But Michael, watching this footage later, couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. He didn't recognize any of them. Anastasia wasn't the kind of person to trust easily. So why was she sitting with these strangers? Why was she drinking with them, alone at night? The footage went on. After a while, the group began to stand up. One of the men reached for a motorbike parked just off camera. Anastasia followed him. She climbed on behind him, casually, as if she didn't think twice. That was the last time any camera saw her alive. Witnesses later confirmed they had seen her with those men, laughing, joking, moving through the street. No one reported anything strange at the time, nothing that made them stop and question the moment. It was only later, once her face appeared on the missing posters, that they realized what they had seen. The camera had recorded a moment that no one recognized as a goodbye. But it was. The 5 men quickly became the center of the investigation. Who were they? Where had they come from? And more importantly, what did they want from Anastasia? It didn't take long for police to identify them. All 5 were migrant workers, originally from Bangladesh and Pakistan. They were living in Greece without proper documentation, working low-paying jobs in construction and agriculture, staying in overcrowded rental homes on the outskirts of town. At first, they denied everything. They told the police they had never seen her, that they didn't know who she was, that they were working late that night and had nothing to do with any missing woman. But when confronted with the CCTV footage, their stories began to shift. One of them admitted they had spoken to her. Another said they had shared drinks. Eventually, they all confirmed what the video had already shown, that Anastasia had spent time with them that evening. They claimed she was drunk, that she had approached them, that she had asked for help getting home. They said they were just being kind. That's all, just helping a stranger. But something didn't sit right. Why had she messaged Mile, saying she didn't feel safe? Why had she sent him 3 different location pins in less than 10 minutes? And why, if these men had truly helped her, was she now gone without a trace? 2 of the men had scratches on their arms and faces. When asked, they shrugged, said it was from work, an accident, something they didn't remember clearly. But the marks were fresh, thin, sharp lines, like the result of a struggle. Investigators pushed harder. They took DNA samples. They checked phones, searched homes, interviewed neighbors. But none of the men gave a clear explanation about what happened after Anastasia left with them. They insisted she got home safely. But Michael knew she hadn't. And deep down, so did the police, because their eyes, when questioned, never met the officers. And behind those unfamiliar faces, something dark was hiding, something they were desperate to keep buried. The scratches were small, but they spoke louder than words. When the men were brought in for questioning, the officers noticed them immediately. Thin red lines across cheeks, arms. One even had a healing gash just beneath his eye. At first, it seemed minor, almost unnoticeable. But in a missing persons case, nothing is minor. The detectives leaned in. What happened here? One man hesitated, then muttered something about falling at work. Another said he scraped his arm moving furniture. Their explanations didn't match. The timelines were vague. The details were inconsistent. It was clear they hadn't rehearsed a lie well enough. And those scratches, they didn't look accidental. They looked desperate, like someone had been fighting, clawing, trying to get away. Investigators had seen it before. Marks like that don't come from boxes or tools. They come from fingernails, from fear, from the last few seconds of someone struggling to survive. They took photos, logged every wound, collected DNA from under the men's nails and from the dried skin near the cuts. It would take time to analyze, but already the shift was happening. This was no longer just a disappearance. This was a fight, a confrontation. Something had gone wrong that night, terribly, irreversibly wrong, and the men sitting in front of the officers knew exactly what it was. Still, they insisted on their innocence. Calm faces, flat voices, no emotion, just the same story told in 5 slightly different ways. She asked for help. We gave her a ride. We dropped her off. That's all. But their faces told another story. The kind of story you don't speak with words, but with silence, hesitation, and wounds you try to cover. And as investigators looked closer, it became clear the truth wasn't just hidden. It had left scars. 6 days had passed. 6 long, punishing days since Anastasia vanished without a trace. The search hadn't stopped. If anything, it had grown more desperate. Police scoured remote areas. Local volunteers stepped in. Sniffer dogs were deployed, and drones hovered above fields and marshes. But every path led to nothing. Every lead went cold. Then came the 7th day. The sun beat down on the salt marshes outside Tagaki, a flat, open stretch of land, dry and cracked in the heat, where the ground felt lifeless and the air held its breath. A group of volunteers, exhausted but determined, were sweeping through the area with walking sticks, poking gently through tall grass and piles of drifted straw. That's when Anna, one of the volunteers, noticed something odd. A pile of reeds beneath a lone tree. Nothing remarkable at first, but something about the way they were arranged, too neat, too intentional, made her stop. She took her stick, pressed gently into the mound, and felt resistance. Not earth, not wood, something else. She bent down, moved a few of the reeds aside. That's when she saw it. Plastic, black, heavy-duty, wrapped tightly around something large. The smell hit her first, thick, suffocating, and undeniably wrong. She staggered back, called out for help, her voice shaking. Within minutes, police arrived. They cleared the area, unwrapped the layers with gloved hands, every movement slow, deliberate. No one spoke. The only sound was the rustling of plastic and the wind brushing through the dry trees. And then, silence. A naked body lay inside the bag. Her, Anastasia. She had been dumped like garbage, dehumanized, stripped not just of her clothes, but of her identity. The condition of the body was brutal, so severe that even her fingerprints had been removed. The killer hadn't just tried to hide her. He tried to erase her. It was a moment no one there would ever forget. Some cried. Others stood in stunned silence. Because no matter how many cases they'd seen, no matter how many tragedies they'd lived through, this one hit different. This wasn't just a recovery. This was confirmation. Anastasia was gone. And someone had gone to terrifying lengths to make sure no one ever found her again. The search entered its 6th day. Hopes were thinning. The sun bore down on the island, baking the fields and draining the strength of every volunteer still walking, still calling her name. But no one gave up. Not yet. A young volunteer named Anna had joined the search teams combing through the salt marshes near Tagaki, a desolate, quiet area filled with waist-high grass and abandoned patches of dry, cracked land. It was a place where no one went unless they had a reason. And Anna had a reason. She couldn't stop thinking about Anastasia. She moved slowly, poking through brush with a walking stick, eyes scanning every rock, every pile of debris. Then she saw it. A strange formation beneath a tree, twigs stacked unnaturally, like someone had tried to disguise something. Anna stepped closer. The smell hit her first. A wave of decay, thick and sickening, that clung to the air and turned her stomach. Her hand trembled as she reached forward, nudging the pile with her stick. Beneath the twigs, a plastic bag, bulging, heavy, partially buried in sand. She called out for help, her voice breaking. Other volunteers ran to her side. The police were summoned within minutes. When they arrived, they carefully removed the bag, And then they saw her. Anastasia's body had been left there, naked, lifeless, and robbed of all dignity. She had been brutalized. The damage was so severe, they couldn't even use her fingerprints for identification. Someone had tried to erase her completely. It was the kind of scene that stays with you forever. Officers turned away. Volunteers cried. And Michael, when he arrived, had to be held back, his knees collapsing beneath him. But the horror didn't end there. The body had been found just 1 kilometer from the home of one of the men questioned by police. And now, this wasn't just a missing persons case. It was murder. And somewhere out there, her killer was still walking free. At the forensic lab, silence filled the room as evidence began to speak. Anastasia's body was carefully examined. Bruises, scratches, signs of a struggle. The time of death placed just hours after her final message. But it was what they found next that shifted everything. Blonde hairs, long, fine strands, were discovered on a sweatshirt found in one suspect apartment. A blouse with red stains had been stuffed in the back of a closet, hastily washed, but still bearing traces of blood. And on the wall of the same room, under the light switch, a smear, small, but unmistakably human blood. Tests confirmed the truth. The hair belonged to Anastasia. So did the blood. And when they examined the scratches on the suspect's arms, they matched the pattern of her fingernails. She had fought hard for her life. Every inch of that room echoed with her pain. Every fiber of fabric, every stain, every hair. It all told a story more honest than any confession. She didn't go quietly. She didn't surrender. She was stolen. And now, the evidence, cold, scientific, and undeniable, was ready to speak for her. When the police finally seized the suspect's phone, they expected resistance. Passwords, locked folders, deleted histories. But what they found was worse, because it wasn't just what he tried to hide. It was what he left behind. Forensic technicians dug to the device, line by line, app by app, unearthing the hidden footprints left in his digital trail. At first, it looked clean. No photos, no saved messages, no calls after a certain date. But behind the surface, deep in the data logs, the truth began to emerge. Search history, hundreds of queries, all clustered around the hours following Anastasia's disappearance. Can police track deleted messages? How to erase phone data permanently? How to destroy SIM card without trace? And then worse, how long does it take a body to decompose? How to hide a dead body? How to make identification impossible? Every word was like a scream written in pixels. Cold, calculated, calm. This wasn't panic. It was preparation. He hadn't stumbled into this. He had thought it through. Each search showed intent, timing, and an eerie level of control. Even the choice of websites, anonymous forums, dark web threads, videos labeled for educational purposes only, painted the picture of someone not looking for help, but for instruction. He was building a plan, one that included not just the killing, but the cover-up, the disposal, the silence. And still, he had missed one thing, his own curiosity. The questions he typed in the dark were now the brightest clues the police had. They connected the horror of the crime to the mind behind it, because a killer might wash blood from clothes. They might delete pictures, wipe down surfaces, throw away phones. But they rarely think to erase the questions that haunted them before they acted. And now, those questions would speak louder than any denial. They were the unfiltered thoughts of a mind twisted by control and fear of being caught. Not just a murderer, but a man who wanted to disappear the crime as if it had never happened. The clock was ticking, and he knew it. In the hours following Anastasia's disappearance, while search teams roamed the island and Mile begged for answers, the man who had last been seen with her was already making quiet preparations. He didn't act panicked. He didn't run. Not at first. Instead, he moved with eerie precision. Calm. Measured. The kind of calm that doesn't come from innocence, but from someone who thinks they've covered every trace. He packed a small bag. Just the essentials. A few clothes, some cash, a phone charger, identification. He didn't tell anyone where he was going, not his roommates, not his co-workers. No goodbyes, no explanations, because he wasn't planning on coming back. Tucked inside a drawer in his small rented room was a printed plane ticket. One way, destination, Italy, departure, the next morning, just hours after the body was found. He had planned it perfectly. If the police had been just a few hours late in connecting the dots, if they had hesitated before making the arrest, he would have boarded that plane, disappeared into another country, started over, new name, new place, new life. He thought he could outrun the truth. But what he didn't count on was time running out on him. When officers searched his room, they found the bag zipped and ready. The ticket was still on the desk. The clock on the wall ticked quietly as if mocking his plan. His escape was no longer a step ahead. It was cornered. There was no panic in his eyes when they cuffed him, only silence, as if he was still hoping, somehow, that it was all a mistake, that he could lie his way out, that the evidence wouldn't hold. But it did, and the ticket in his name wasn't just proof of a planned escape. It was proof of guilt, because innocent men don't run, and monsters don't look back. They almost missed him. Just one more day, just 24 hours more, and he would have been gone forever. When investigators searched his small rented room on the edge of town, they found more than just stained clothing and a phone filled with damning searches. They found a suitcase, zipped, packed, ready to go. Inside were a few changes of clothes, a stash of euros, and a printed plane ticket. One way, to Italy. The flight was scheduled for the next morning. He hadn't told anyone, not his roommates, not his employer, not even the other men who had been with him that night. He was slipping away, alone quietly, before anyone could connect the dots. But the timing betrayed him, because that night, just hours before his flight, police came knocking. They arrested him without struggle. He didn't protest. He didn't cry. He didn't even ask why, as if he had rehearsed this moment, as if he knew the game was up. But inside his suitcase, police found one last thing, a slip of paper, folded, crammed into the side pocket. On it were scribbled names, a timeline, a checklist, burned clothes, smash phone, leave town. The plan was clear, clinical, cold. He wasn't just fleeing, he was erasing. And if the police had been 1 day late, 1 hour slower, 1 moment too late, he would have vanished, just like she had. Only he'd still be breathing, and she'd still be buried in silence. Underscore. The courtroom was packed. Rows of seats filled with journalists, citizens, friends, and the grieving family of Anastasia, all waiting for justice. The suspect sat at the defense table, hands cuffed, face blank. No emotion, no remorse, just silence. The charges were read aloud. Murder, obstruction of justice, unlawful disposal of the body. He pleaded not guilty. He claimed Anastasia came to his home willingly, that they drank together, talked, fell asleep, and that when he woke up, she was gone, vanished, just like that. But the evidence told another story. The forensic experts testified about the blood found on his clothes, the hair trapped in threads of his sweatshirt, the DNA under his nails. The digital experts showed the search history, graphic, detailed, chilling. Police officers presented photos of the suitcase, the plane ticket, the room where Anastasia had likely taken her final breath. And then her father spoke. He stood in the witness box, voice trembling but clear, eyes locked on the man who had destroyed his family. My daughter believed people were good, he said, that the world was beautiful. She trusted you, and you took everything from her. This punishment, whatever it is, will never bring her back, but at least it will stop you from ever doing it again. Anastasia's brother asked for something else. He asked for 10 minutes alone with the man who had killed his sister. Just 10. He didn't say what he'd do, but no one had to ask. The jury didn't take long. Guilty. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called the crime an act of cruelty beyond measure. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was announced. Some cried, some closed their eyes. Others simply stared at the man who would now spend the rest of his life in a cage. It wasn't justice in its purest form, but it was something, a beginning, an end, and a message. As the trial came to a close, one question continued to echo in every corner of the courtroom, every hallway of the police station, and every conversation held behind closed doors. Was he really alone? Because the night Anastasia disappeared, 5 men had been with her. 5 were seen laughing, drinking, talking to her. And yet, only one man was ever charged. Only one man faced trial. Only one went to prison. What happened to the others? Police questioned them. Yes, took their statements, took their DNA. They were held for hours, days, but ultimately they were released. No evidence tied them directly to the crime. No blood on their clothes. No incriminating searches. No visible trace of Anastasia's presence in their homes. But doubts remained. 2 of them had fresh scratches. One had been seen whispering something urgently to the accused just before the arrest. Another disappeared shortly after questioning, leaving town quietly, moving to another region of Greece, never to return. There were rumors, whispers, that perhaps they had helped him, or watched, or simply stayed silent while it happened. Silence, after all, is its own kind of guilt. Investigators dug deeper, checked phone records, CCTV near their homes, tried to connect dots that didn't quite form a clear picture. But nothing stuck. The forensic trail ended at the hands of one man. Still, the sense of unfinished justice lingered, because it was hard to believe that a girl, outnumbered, scared, sending desperate texts to her boyfriend, could have been harmed so brutally by only one person, without the others knowing, without the others hearing, without them doing anything to stop it. And that truth, whether it's ever proven or not, still haunts the people who loved her, because sometimes justice gets one name and leaves the rest in the shadows. The courtroom was still. The verdict had been read. Life imprisonment. No chance of parole. People whispered. Cameras clicked. The judge stood, and the room began to clear. But for Anastasia's family, nothing felt finished. Nothing felt healed. Her father remained seated, hands trembling, eyes staring straight ahead at the man who had destroyed his world. His daughter was gone. Her laughter, her voice, her future, all stolen in a night filled with lies and silence. He had listened to every moment of the trial, heard about the bruises, the blood, the Google searches, the suitcase, the lies, and still, the man had never looked at him, not once. So he stood, and he spoke. My daughter was trusting, too trusting. She believed people were good. She believed no one would ever hurt her. And you used that against her. His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. She had just begun her life. She had so many dreams, so much love. And now, all we have is her memory. You didn't just kill her. You destroyed something purer. And then came the words no one expected. He looked at the judge, calm, clear, with fire in his eyes that had been burning for months. Give me 10 minutes alone with him. The room went silent. 10 minutes. No cameras. No guards. Just me and him. The judge didn't respond. The guard shifted uneasily, but everyone heard it. The rage, the heartbreak, the desperation behind those words. Anastasia's brother stood beside his father, fists clenched. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just stared at the man in handcuffs and whispered, "You didn't just take her. You tore a hole in all of us. No sentence could fill that hole. No punishment could bring her back." They didn't want revenge. They wanted the impossible. To undo what had been done. To take back the moment she sent that final message. To bring her home, alive and laughing. But all they had now was pain. And a courtroom echoing with the sound of a family broken. A father's rage. A brother's silence. And the kind of grief that doesn't fade with time. It carves itself into the soul. Forever. In the end, what happened to Anastasia was more than a tragedy. It was a warning. A lesson written not in words, but in silence. in absence, in the empty space where her life should have continued. She was young, kind, open-hearted. She believed the best in people. She believed that a simple smile, a polite conversation, a shared drink meant safety. That danger only looked like monsters, not ordinary men on an ordinary night. But danger wears many faces, and sometimes the most polite stranger hides the darkest intent. Anastasia didn't make a mistake. She did what so many of us do every day. Trust. Trust, that help means help. That laughter means friendship. That kindness is genuine. She didn't deserve what happened to her. No one does. But the world isn't always kind. And not every outstretched hand is meant to lift you up. Some pull you under. Some lead you into places you can't return from. One moment of trust. One ride on a stranger's bike. One decision made under pressure, fear, or fatigue, and a life full of dreams was ended. That's the price. That's the truth. This isn't a call to live in fear. It's a call to be aware. To listen to the voice inside that whispers, something's not right. To speak up. To protect each other. To recognize that evil doesn't always come with warning signs. Anastasia's story doesn't end with a verdict or a prison sentence. It lives on in every girl who walks alone at night, in every message that says, "I don't feel safe," in every person who's ever doubted their instincts, ignored their gut, or stayed silent when they should have spoken. Let this be her legacy, a reminder that trust should be earned, not given to everyone with a friendly smile, because one moment of faith in the wrong person can cost everything. If this story reached into your heart, if it made you think, feel, or question the world just a little more, then don't let it end here. At Crime Chronicles Confidential, our mission is simple: to give voice to the voiceless, to uncover the stories hidden in silence, to bring you the truth, no matter how dark, no matter how painful. Because every victim deserves to be remembered. Every case deserves to be heard. So if you felt something today, if Anastasia's story left a mark, we ask you to do one thing. Be part of this journey. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Tell us what struck you the most. And let us know, what case should we uncover next? Your voice matters. Your perspective shapes this community. And together, we shine light into the darkest corners. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, stay human,